Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Girl Boss Method podcast, hosted by myself, Richie Bra. So, today we are revisiting a topic that I have recorded before, but that was a while back now. And so I thought it would be really good to kind of have a fresh eyes on this again. And yeah, just kind of talk a little bit more about, a few different things anyway. So, creatine, the what, the why, and the how much. Now, what we do know about creatine is that it's highly popularized right now. Everybody seems to be talking about creatine. It's, as we know, the most well researched supplement ever. Okay. And when we're thinking about creatine, the first thing that I want to talk to you about is the type of creatine that we want to take in terms of the supplement. So we want to take creatine monohydrate, and that is the form that is proven to have benefits. And there may be some newer versions or different versions out there. The best thing to do is just send me a message and ask me, just literally ask me, show me a tub of your creatine or the powder or a link, etc., and just ask me if this is the right thing, because I know that it can be quite confusing these days. And also there are maybe even additional supplements that are packaged and made to look quite fancy with various different like flavors and stuff and extra things in them, whether it's like other supplements alongside. Ideally, you want to take creatine monohydrate in its most boringest, purest form. And yeah, it's just so that it's doing the job that it needs to do. And so we are going to talk about what things creatine does. So we'll have a look at that now. So what is creatine? So firstly, it's a naturally occurring compound stored primarily in muscle, but can also be found in the brain and other tissues. This might make you feel slightly confused, like, what is this magic thing, right? It helps your muscles produce energy during heavy lifting or even high intensity exercise. Supplementing with creatine can provide a boost in performance and energy and allow you to work out harder and for longer as well. So, where do we get creatine from? So, yes, it is commonly found in, well, naturally found in animal muscle tissue, including fish. So, when you are consuming animals just like us, we store the creatine. It's found in our muscles, it's found in animal muscles too. But it's important to note that this is not at ergogenic dosages. In order to find, so typically when we're looking at supplementation and recommendations as well, people may say, well, you need 5 grams of creatine per day. I will talk to you in a little bit more detail in terms of what that might look like for you. So 5 grams of creatine, to get that from beef, for example, you would need to be consuming well over a kilo. Bizarre, right? Now, creatine is actually made within our body as well. And it's actually the phosphocreatine system that it's needed for. Okay. So when we are sort of pushing and doing sort of anaerobic exercise as well, if you like. So when we're thinking about some of the benefits, I'm going to just list them here, and then we can go into, again, a little bit more detail in terms of some of these as well. So isometric strength. So isometric strength is just pure strength in like a holding position, right? Isometric means that it's under tension without like movement. So there are 3 parts to a movement. You've got your concentric. If we think about a bicep curl, concentric, eccentric. So the isometric would be at tension there. So increased training load and quality, so it's going to help with those things. So again, yeah, it improves lots of different qualities when it comes to like training and training volume as well. So some of the best effects that it's had when we're thinking about like research is that it helps create the biggest ergogenic effects, the biggest effect in repeated high intensity efforts. So things that have very short recovery. So we're thinking about like our HIIT training, for example. So again, when we're looking at increased recovery as well, and then also increased training induced adaptation, so the way that we're responding to these things as well. So by increasing the training load that can be tolerated, that also helps us basically create more increased like muscle building or lean tissue performance. You can see all of these words on the space on the page, right? So increased training induced adaptations, increased lean tissue and performance. And this one might sound a bit strange, but increased or improved cognitive function. Now that sounds strange, right? This could kind of come under the other benefits. So obviously when we're thinking about things that we see online, etc., everyone's sort of, especially companies promoting creatine, they often promote this sort of more training benefits, not really some of the other stuff that I've kind of listed here. So improved cognitive function. So there was a study, it was by Ray et al. 2007. And they said as little as 5 grams of creatine has significant increase on both working memory and intelligence. So girl bosses, in terms of that sort of cognitive function, your memory, your intelligence, all of those things, it's going to help us, with those sorts of things as well, which is wonderful. And then there's also a note on sleep deprivation as well. So creatine, so again, in another study by McMorris et al. 2006, creatine group had significantly less decline in performance after sleep deprivation. So again, for those of you that have issues with sleep, so whether that's because of young children keeping you up, or it's just one of those side effects that we may experience as we sort of near towards sort of being peri or menopausal, etc. So again, it's going to help with that. There may be, and this is just again a side note as well, I've said here, emerging research suggesting that creatine might help improve bone density, which again is essential as essential factor for women as we age. Again, is that because we are strengthening our bones, which again is help improving the sort of loading on the bones, increasing our muscle tissue, which is improving the loading on our bones. There's so many different things that are compounding here as well. And then also just sort of like a side note, I haven't actually mentioned it here, but just having a look at some of my notes for when I studied nutrition, and we talked about like one of our supplement lectures, if you like, talking about creatine, that actually when it comes to creatine and sort of neurodegenerative diseases, they have found that there is actually a decreased amount of creatine in the brain. So when we're thinking about that, maybe there may be some benefit to actually thinking about the aging process and some of these sort of like predispositions to neurodegenerative diseases that might happen as we age, etc. So moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about some of these like myths, if you like. So, or myths or questions that you might have. Okay. So does creatine cause water retention? Well, actually, that's kind of the job of creatine. Okay. So yes, creatine can cause water retention, and primarily within the muscle cells. Okay. This is not like harmful and can even, again, enhance muscle physiology and performance by improving the hydration and increasing the cell volume. So these things are all the things that we can kind of connect to the previous slide when we were talking about increased performance, increased like, lean tissue, etc. So all of those sort of like, working out benefits basically. But yeah, look, at the end of the day, if it doesn't cause water retention, then it's probably likely not being absorbed. Because the point of creatine is to draw water into the cells, and that's what's going to help. Okay, so performance, etc. And then this is an interesting one, because this is one that's always like kind of floated around. So will supplementing with creatine damage your kidneys? So for most healthy individuals, creatine does not damage the kidneys. So we have to think, however, those with pre-existing renal issues should avoid creatine supplementation or use it under medical supervision. So again, this is something you can talk to or talk to your GP about if you have history or there's some issues in terms of like kidney function, etc. So again, there could be some issues there. And then again, when we're thinking about this, is a lot of it is to do with, some of the things that we might talk about in a second. So like dehydration, for example, and the fact that you need to have more water. So yes, should you consume more water when taking creatine? Yes, it's advisable to increase water intake when using creatine. This helps manage the increased intracellular water retention. So the muscles, etc., they're pulling in that water. So yes, again, we're going to need to help support that overall hydration, which again is important for optimizing that creatine efficacy. So hopefully that answers a couple of questions about the creatine thing as well. Just coming back to this, like, why should we take it? This is an expert from one of my lectures. Again, just to prove to you that this is not just something that I've pulled out of nowhere. It's important. Everybody's talking about it right now. It's well researched. And when we're thinking about things like fat burners and stuff, just like get rid of them. If you're going to take a supplement, I highly recommend creatine. Alongside this, there are other supplements that can help when it comes to like dietary enhancement, if you like, or just helping build or make nutrition make more sense for you, etc. But creatine, in terms of like a supplement that you won't necessarily get from your food, is beneficial. So again, why do we want to do it? Improved muscle strength and power, improved muscle size, so toning, ladies, improved muscular endurance, improved intermittent sprint performance. So again, this is sort of coming back, you could say, towards that sort of like HIIT training, helping improve that capacity, improved recovery and glycogen storage, improved cognitive function as well. So yeah, when we're thinking about that improved recovery and the glycogen storage as well, that's mega important. And creatine monohydrate, so the what, the when. Okay, so that is the only form that is extensively researched. Beware of newer versions. So this sort of creatine ethyl ester or creacalin, tricreatine malate. I don't think I've even seen some of these on the market. But again, when you're thinking about buying supplements that maybe have lots of like flavorings or lots of like extra stuff with them, they might have this in there, or the creatine might be in your supplement that you use for something else, maybe like even like your fat burner or something, God knows. Just focus on having it in its purest form, basically. Okay. So ideally, when do you want to take it? You want to take it with your food and like after training. So what type of food? Ideally, carbohydrates. And again, protein is also an option as well. So if you know you've just trained and you're in a rush, you can chuck it in your protein shake. But yeah, it's gonna be beneficial with carbs, of course, because carbs are going to help pull in that water as well into muscle cells. Okay. So how much do we want to have? So there are some benefits to sort of doing this loading thing. It's not necessary. You can go straight into a maintenance. I've done loading before. It's mega annoying, especially when you want to try and like, I did it years ago, almost like because that's what was done and that was, beneficial, or that was what was the thing. But there are, it's not necessary now. And then when we are thinking about like doing loading, I did it last year, just almost like as a test, just to kind of go, right, let's see how we go with this loading thing. It had been like a period of not having any creatine supplement. So I just thought it was worth giving it a go. And it got quite annoying. Because the loading phase can be like 5 to 7 days. And then when we're thinking about equal doses, that with the equal doses, then I'm like splitting up my meals, and then it's like got 4 meals, and then it's like extra water, because you just literally, I was speaking about this with one of the other girls the other day that was just like talking about her experience of having to just chug water down. So just those things to be mindful of. So just go for a maintenance. And when we're thinking about the maintenance, you don't need to have as much as 5 grams. Even as little as 2.4, even 2 grams is perfectly enough. And that's the sum, and that's the figure of how much you should be having. So 0.03 grams per kilo of your body weight per day. So for example, let's say, for example, you weigh 80 kilos. So you do 0.03 times by 80, and that will equal to 2.4. And if I sort of guesstimate and say, let's say, for example, you weigh 70 kilos, maybe it's around 2 grams. So yeah, I mean, with my protein, for example, with the scoops, I think a scoop of my protein is like a 5 gram dose. Just double check. Might be 3 grams or 5 grams. Again, it's like, I think I just take like half a scoop, literally. So that will be plenty for you. So you don't need to be like whacking in loads. It tastes disgusting, bear in mind. There is a method to it. Dry scoop, wash down with water, dry scoop, wash down with a squash, and a flavored squash if you like. Or you can mix it in with your protein shake. So there are a few different ways, but hopefully this shorter version of this creatine episode is better, because I feel like the original one that I did was quite long and lengthy. So we've gone straight to the point here. Again, if you've got any questions about this and you want to like ask for some more information, maybe you want to know more about creatine and like maybe even some brands. We've mentioned my protein, but maybe you've got a brand that you've tried out before, you want to know if it's any good, then yeah, just send me a message. But yeah, other than that, I hope you enjoyed this evening's episode. And yeah, I am constantly, looking at adding in more. Every week we do these, every week these educational calls. So they will either be based on questions that you ask me in your check-in, or there'll be like topics that I think will be really beneficial for you to learn about. So just keep an eye on the schedule, which is released at the beginning of each month with the list. And we were trying to every month ensure that there's something definitely centered around like mindset and lifestyle, something to do with like training specifically, maybe even like supplements, and in even like that nutrition arm as well. So there will be like a nice variety, etc. But with that being said, have a lovely rest of your evening, whatever you're up to, and I will catch you here next time.